Hi, everybody, it's Julie, and in the March newsletter, I'm going to be sharing some ideas for mixing and matching two Essentials by Ellen stamp sets. One is Advent on the left. It was released at the holidays and it features a really fun retro vibe in the style of the numbers and the holiday greetings. And it can be used on its own for countdown projects for Christmas and New Year's. And then there's Totally Awesome on the right, which is more of a celebratory set for birthdays, anniversaries, graduation, a wedding. And as we were developing this set, we thought, wouldn't it be cool if you could combine some elements from this set with elements from the Advent set and make it all work together? And so we put in some ordinal symbols. You can see those highlighted and circled in red. And those are sized and scaled perfectly to work with the Advent numbers. And then we took the words amazing, happy, wonderful, and awesome and created those to specifically work with the Inky Antics scratch off stickers. And the largest of those measures 1 by 2 inches, so you'll find that these will fit underneath those. But what was obvious to us as we were designing these various sets may not have been as obvious to everybody else. So we thought, it would be fun to combine these and show everybody what we were thinking when we created them. So I'm going to get started with some really fun card ideas and just share some tips and ideas for them. For a really fun birthday card, I took all those fun words that would fit under the scratch off stickers and I lined them all up and used the grid on my Misty. You could also use a Fisker stamp press if you had one of those, or a very large acrylic block, but I wanted everything mounted at one time so I could go ahead and stamp them and I could make multiples of these. So I actually stamped half a dozen of these so that they're ready to go, and I just have them set aside for the next time I need a really quick and fun interactive birthday card. I stamped with a tuxedo black memento ink because I wanted to highlight the letters with Copic markers, and that ink works very well with alcohol markers. Now, I didn't want to color all the letters in because that would be torturous to try to do that on the letters that are so tiny, but just to swipe some color over the top works really well. And I'm not really being too careful. I'm just swiping gently the color, and I don't want it to be even or perfect. I just want it to look like swipes of color, and I created kind of a mix of soft aqua blues and some peachy pink tones. And then I'm going to set that aside after I die cut it down. I'm going to cut it down a little bit smaller because I wanted to put it on a base card that had a floral pattern in the background. And I'm using Mondo Hydrangea here and using some gray flannel memento ink to stamp that. I wanted kind of a neutral background. I didn't want it to get so overpowering or overtake the fun element that's going to be the focal of this. I just wanted a really sweet, delicate floral pattern in the background. So I'm just filling the space up to make it look like pattern paper. I don't need to fill everything up because it will be concealed by that top panel. But I 3D mounted that over the top. And then I took my scratch off stickers, and these are actually 1 by 2 inch, and I cut them in half lengthwise on my tonic guillotine trimmer. And there you can see they're the perfect height and the perfect width to cover up each one of these. And I'm going to take the liner and peel it back on itself and then hang on to that with my tweezers. Now you'll notice I'm covering up the word wonderful. I didn't start at the top. I started with the widest word first, and wonderful happens to be it. So I started there, and the reason I did that, it was easier to make sure that all of the others lined up the same once I had the longest one covered first. If I'd started with the word happy, which was shorter, and I misaligned it, then I wouldn't have been able to have them all in a perfect straight row going all the way down the middle of the card. Now that's what I wanted to do for balance, and it worked just fine. Now once that was finished, I actually took some scraps of cardstock from my bin and put a couple of those, piled them up, stacked them up, and put them underneath the edge so I could do my little Stickles glitter treatment, because it's really hard to do that if you've 3D raised that, and that piece is mounted on foam tape up high. And so to get that glittery effect on the edge, I had to have some scratch cardstock underneath. Now on the card on the right, I did the exact same thing, but I have a die cut background. That's the Bed of Roses cover plate. Now I did the exact same coloring technique on this card. I just didn't cover it with scratch off stickers. I used the Copic markers over the top of the words that were stamped with tuxedo black ink by Memento. And then I switched out the word birthday for the word life and added a couple of little hearts from the Fancy Thanks stamp set. Added some sequins, and I had a beautiful wedding card. Now, on this next birthday card design, this is a masculine birthday card, I decided I wanted to have this repeating row of numbers. So I used the grid on my acrylic block to evenly space out the numbers from the Advent set and create a nice 9-number grid. And then I could stamp the first impression there in the middle and then re-ink and then stamp above and stamp below, and everything would be perfectly lined up and it would just look like one continuous row of numbers. And then I also inked up again with Tuxedo Black by Memento onto another scrap of white cardstock so that I could use those as my focal. And I'm going to die cut those out, but as I was sitting there and preparing to die cut them out, it occurred to me if I were really smart, I would stamp these with Memento and with archival ink onto white cardstock and watercolor paper, separate them into baggies, and then I would have them ready to go anytime I needed them, and all I had to do was die cut them out. I wouldn't need to stamp them again, just take what I needed. And the labels let me know whether or not I can use Copic markers or water-based mediums with the archival. And that's what those labels were for. So now I've taken the number 25 and put some foam tape on the back of them, and I'm just lining them up temporarily onto this background panel to make sure I stamp my ordinal number in the right spot. And then I started assembling the card, and I'm at the point now where I'm taking the numbers and putting foam tape on those. I'm just going to get them mounted into place over the top of my little strip of background paper there. And then I took the greeting, which was white embossed, and cut it also into strips and added foam tape so that I could elevate those over the top and give them some dimension. You can see how nicely that background pattern of numbers complements the focal image, but they don't overpower. So it's a really nice way to have that repeating motif there on your card front and not compete with your focal, which is, the 25th birthday. I thought this was a really fun masculine birthday card design. I would make a whole bunch of these, and you could even make a feminine one by swapping out, the stripes and the color scheme. Add some florals. So on this card, I'm actually creating a graduation design. I took the numbers, which I had die cut out, and I used micropore tape to go over the top of them. I neutralized it against my arm. I had the numbers lined up on my grid mat there, and then I put the micropore tape over the top so I could grab all of them at one time and put foam tape on the back. And here you can see how handy that micropore tape is going to be because I can see through it. I have my greeting white embossed on black cardstock strips, and I'm just temporarily putting them in place so I can see and make sure that my spacing is going to work out here. And I've peeled off the liner from the foam tape on the numbers, and I can go ahead and press that into place. And then I'm going to carefully peel that micropore tape back on itself and peel it away. And it's always a good idea to neutralize that against your arm once or twice before you apply it to your project so that you don't mar the surface when you're removing the tape. And now I can go ahead and peel away the liner. I just used Be Creative tape on the back of these. I could have 3D mounted them, but I thought they looked just fine, flush on the front of the card. And I did create a watercolor wash background with some yellow watercolor and gold watercolor by Peerless. And I went ahead and put those over the top of a messy nest of gold thread, and then I added some gold star sequins, and I thought that made a really fun graduation card. You could customize it by changing out the watercolor wash in the background if you wanted to. Maybe use the school colors for your graduate, and that would be a fun way to further customize the card design. But I thought these two cards turned out super fun, and I love the combination of Totally Awesome and the Advent set together. I think they work awesome. We have more still shots and further details available at the In Touch newsletter blog, and I hope these projects give you some ideas for combining the Advent and Totally Awesome stamp sets. Thanks for watching.